Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to another episode of Everyone Loves Guitar. I always feel weird saying that. I don't know why. We're with a really cool guy today. Great career, super interesting. We're with Quinton Gibson. He's been the lead guitarist for platinum-selling country artist Darius Rucker, of course, from Hootie and the Blowfish. Quinton's held that slot for the last 10 years. He's performed on nationally televised shows like Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, CMA, the ACMs, the Grand Ole Opry, American Idol, Undercover Boss, Letterman, Leno, and pretty much anything else that's popular on TV in America. He's been a recognized touring musician since 1992. His experience also includes producing and engineering. And not only has he been intrigued by the creative side of making music, but he really does enjoy the process of making the music come alive through recording. He has a home studio in the house, that's not redundant, that allows him to work on music and produce other artists and projects. Additionally, he's worked with a local Nashville company to create and produce national and regional radio spots. Quinton, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Man, it is a pleasure to be here. It's been fun getting to know you so far.
Yeah, we spent more time talking.
Right?
Man, how did you initially get the job working with Darius, and what were you doing before that musically?
Well, the way that I ended up doing an audition with Darius, and we are right at around the 10-year mark. It was in 2008, right after Thanksgiving. I was on tour with another artist named David Phelps. He's a contemporary Christian artist. And it's kind of a Southern gospel-y pop thing. And I was his guitar player. We had my friend Chris was playing drums, who he now plays with Thomas Rhett. And so we were touring with David, and a friend of mine that was a publicist at Capitol Records. She called me. I'd known her a long time. She had worked with a lot of artists on the roster. And she said that there was a opening guitar slot. Darius had decided to move on from the previous guitar player. And I was like, you got to help me get an audition. We got to figure this out. Yeah. And because I had auditioned for, some other people and, was the runner-up quite a few times. And so, but I was still able to tour with different artists. Just about anything I auditioned for, I never got. So anyway, she got in touch with management. Management called me. I had a talk with them, and they said, "Well, I think we have enough people auditioning. Appreciate it. We'll maybe talk to you down the road." I was like, okay, well, here's my number again. And, just if you don't find the guy, just give me a call. So they had 20 plus, I think 26 guitar players that auditioned, and they called me and said, "Hey, we have not found our guy yet, and we're going to audition 6 more people, and we'd like for you to be one of them." So I got a hold of the material, and they told me what songs to learn. And, listen to the songs. There were like 7 songs, I believe. And, I knew that Brad Paisley had played on one and a couple other hot session guys. And so, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be a little bit of work to mimic some Paisley. But it was really, really good for me growing as a guitar player. And so I went into the audition and I did it. And I was like, I probably didn't get this, but, it was a cool experience. So I moved on, and I was on the road with David Phelps doing a Christmas tour, and I got a call, and they said, "We need you to come back in." I'm like, wow. okay.
Was Darius at that
obviously
first
did
edition?
something right to get it. No,
Oh, he wasn't. It was just the band.
it was only the band leader.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
The audition was not with the band. It was interesting. It was an audition with a track that did not have any guitar, and so I just played along with it. So it was a very interesting audition, unlike any other that I've done.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was like, okay, I'm going to go in. I kind of brushed up on the songs and made sure that, I had the vocals down. That was an important thing. They wanted to make sure they found somebody that whose vocals meshed with Darius very well. And so I came in and, the band music director, he told me specifically what to learn. And so that's what I learned. I went in. And we had a great talk, and it was good. And I left, and I was like, I don't know if I got it. I don't know. And a few days later, I got a call from music director, and it was about 8:00 in the morning, I think. And I was on the road with David, and I was in the bunk area, and I was trying to be quiet. And he's like, well, Quinton, we really appreciate it, but I think we're going to go another direction. I was like, okay. And I'm kind of trying to, like, that's totally cool, man. Said, just keep my number, whatever. He's like, I'm bullshitting you. You got the gig.
Holy, that whole thing, that's weird.
I was like, what? I was like, I'm trying to be quiet. So I go out and I'm thinking, how did this rock dude score a country gig? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I haven't been known for my incredible country chops.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have improved since then. It's been a decade. I hope I've improved. But yeah, so it was pretty exciting. And then at that point the work really began. Because I had to change my thought process and my approach. Because I was always a Les Paul guy or Ibanez or something, and I thought, I need to. After listening to the music, I need to invest in some Telecasters because I had never owned one. And, I went a different direction. I went from my Marshall setup to some Dr. Z's. And so that was kind of the beginning there.
That's what, man, I give you a couple of questions. That's a great story, man. Really cool.
Thank you.
Did you sing background vocals with David Phelps or like in general?
With David, yeah. Well, just about every artist that I played with, I did sing backups, and interesting. Darius was the first artist in a long time that that we didn't use tracks. Cause a lot of artists use tracks.
Sure.
And, when I was in the contemporary Christian world, rock and pop and R&B, everybody uses a plethora of tracks. And so, I sang, but I sang with about 15 other voices on track as well.
Right.
Whereas with Darius, he never, from day one, even before I was in the band, no tracks.
So it's old school.
It's old school and it's pure, and I loved that when I came in.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you got to work a little bit harder to fill the gaps. And we were a small band at first. We didn't have steel guitar. We had a utility guy playing fiddle and mandolin and acoustic, but we didn't have our steel guitar yet. So when I came in, they asked me to cover, some steel guitar parts, which was a completely different world for me. So I'm studying and trying to do these bends and all this stuff. And, I went out and bought a telly with a G bender, and I'm like, I got to do everything I can to try to. So it was a mishmash between, just straight up guitar and then a little bit of mixing parts in. And it was a challenge, but it was fun. Now, when we got our steel guitar guy, who's also a hell of a dobro player and a banjo player, then my role actually simplified a little bit, and I could actually play some rhythm on the spots where rhythm guitar was. And it was a lot of fun. And it was a little bit of a challenge to kind of step back and not overplay. because now somebody else gets to do some stuff. So, you grow in so many different ways, and it was just another growing experience for me.
Man, I think the coolest thing you said was, and like this should be super inspiring for everybody. You said, anything I auditioned for, I never got. Then you get an audition and you got to play Brad Paisley, which is, by any standards, incredibly difficult and intimidating, and you kill it, man. So that is really, really cool. Like it would be very easy to just say, oh, I don't get auditions. I don't work well with auditions. So like, why even try?
Yeah.
But I think that is so odd that, you got to keep doing stuff, because you just never know when the thing that you were meant to get is in front of you. And if you don't do it, that's such a cool story, man. Thank you. That is.
Yeah. I've just reminded of my very first audition when I first moved to Nashville in the summer of '92 was for, you remember the band Striper?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Michael Sweet, he went solo from Striper. So that was my first real audition in Nashville. This was like 92, 93 something. And I was still playing my Purple Ibanez, and I had full solid state system, MIDI controllers, and I went into the audition, and I was pretty nervous because I didn't want to mess it up. And because of that, I messed it up.
Yeah.
So I didn't lay back. I came in, I knew the parts inside and out. I was playing the parts, but I wasn't feeling the parts. And if there's any word of encouragement to anybody that has an opportunity to audition, don't just, learn the parts. And I experience this with a lot of students, when I teach scales or something like that. They can, you can play the notes, but you don't necessarily feel the notes. Yeah. So that's a whole different process. So, if you're auditioning or anything like that, you can go in with confidence, but, try to relax a little bit. It's really important just to kind of lay back in the pocket. If you get the gig, cool. If you don't, it's not the end of the world, man.
Right.
You move on to the next thing.
That's such a good story. I think I'm always so looking for the things that motivate people and how the dots get connected. And this is such a good story because like I said, go back to I never got an audition. You're a rock guy. I mean, there's a million reasons that you could have said, no, fuck it. It's just not my thing, but that's so cool, man. So what's changed for you musically over the last 10 years with Darius? And also if there's any changes in your role?
In my role with Darius?
Yeah, and your role with Darius or with the band or, over the last 10 years.
I think what might have changed as far as my role within the band is that because we were a smaller band to start off with, we were all trying to fill gaps. So we went from a 5-piece to a 6-piece. I can't remember how many years ago. Probably 7 or 8, maybe 8 years ago, we got Sasha, our steel player, and he's a prodigy, man. And he's from Russia, and he used to play in a band called Bearing Straight, and a lot of people might remember. Anyway, so he plays banjo and he plays dobro and steel guitar, and he's like the next Jerry Douglas, man. He's sick. Wow. So with saying that, my role just, I fall into, we all know what our role is and we stay in our lane.
Yeah.
And we're all here to make a music bed for Darius.
Right.
And, we don't follow track. So it frees us up if Darius turns and looks at us and he's like, hey, let's audible and move to another song like now, then we can do it. And we've all played together long enough, 10 years. Yeah. So, Sasha's been there 8 or 9. And, Gary, our fiddle player, he's our other utility guy. He's been in the band, I think it's 5 or 6. I can't remember when he came on board. And he replaced our previous fiddle player. We've been a good cohesive unit for a long time. So, you build that chemistry.
Yeah.
And so we can audible like really quickly, and if we need to change a key, if we need to do anything, we're able to do it, man. And that's the great thing about not following track. So I think, hopefully I'm answering your question.
Yeah.
My role is, just falling into, support, we know the songs, we stick with it. We're not a jam band. There's a couple spots during the show that we're able to jam a little bit, but we don't normally just get up and jam unless Darius needs to take a quick break and maybe go to the restroom.
Yeah, sure. The normal reasons,
which has only happened one time that I think, and he's like, just play something. I got to go. I'll be right back. And we're like, oh shit. Okay. So we go into a song. But I think that answered your question.
No,
what
totally.
was your other question? I forgot what the.
No, it was how's your role changed and musically with Darius since you started 10 years ago? You definitely addressed it. What? How many days? How many shows a year is he doing now?
We see this year. I haven't kept good count, but we did like 33, 35 city tour this past summer. We've done a lot of one-offs. I would say maybe we might have done 75
shows. Okay.
Yeah. And we do a fair amount of private shows, corporate things.
Yes.
Darius is very popular in the private show world because he is a very timeless voice and individual.
Yeah.
And you can't just put him in a little box. So, and everybody loves him.
Well, all the baby boomers grew up listening to Hootie and the Blowfish too, man. So it's like now these guys have money and they're running businesses or whatever. And they're like, hey, I want the guy from Hootie to do a private concert because his voice is great and his music is very accessible.
Exactly. His voice is great. Everybody, no matter what genre you like, whatever, you kind of agree that you like Darius.
Yes.
It's kind of like years ago, people were talking about Prince after he passed away. They said the one guy that everybody could agree on just passed away.
Right.
Metalheads, rappers, whatever. They all love Prince.
Yeah.
So I think Darius is a little bit of the same, you know, and so we go in and we can do a little bit of rock. We can do some country, and everybody's happy. So we're kind of the corporate darlings, I think, at times.
Great.
And so anyway, this year was not a super heavy year. When we first started this, we were doing over 150 dates a year, touring in the spring, summer, fall. And, we started out as the baby act on the Paisley tour, went over to Rascal Flatts. And then we did a Lady A tour, and it was very cool to see. And I love telling this story because when we first started as the baby act with Paisley, we were going on early in the arenas, and there weren't very many people there.
Yeah,
people hadn't caught on to the Darius thing yet. And then we did the Rascal Flatts tour in the spring and summer of 2009, I believe that's what it was. And then you started seeing, Darius was having some success on the radio, and you started seeing the crowds get more full. And by the end of the Flats tour, the venue was full.
That's great.
When we were on stage. And then from that point forward, it's always been full.
Great. That's great, man. Really good story. Was any, can you think of any cool or interesting, it's been a long run, 10 years, but any cool or interesting stories that you might want to share?
Man, oh man. There's been some,
that you could share without implicating, without.
Well, I think we can start with maybe like the starting with the early days. We, I'm a big sports fan. So Darius is very connected in the sports world. So I've been fortunate enough to meet most all of my favorite NFL guys.
Really? Basketball
guys, coaches, I've found myself in the green room with 15 Hall of Fame NFL guys, and I'm talking with Joe Theismann, and I'm talking with John Elway, and I'm like, what's going on? I don't even know where I'm at. Like, how is
really
this even
cool.
Talking to, I grew up a Cowboys fan. Now I'm hanging out with Emmett Smith, and it's like, smack, somebody wake me up.
Yeah.
And it's freaking awesome. And so those have always been really cool moments. And it's always like that. I mean, we still have, Mike Golick still comes out to shows quite often. Mark Schlereth, we've got Tony Siragusa, all those guys.
That's wild.
They're always they come to a lot of shows. And so from that standpoint, that's been cool. In the early days, musically, Keith Urban got up on stage and did a couple songs with us. And he and I got to cut heads a little bit. And we did the Joker, and we just kind of went back and forth and, played a little bit.
That's
I've got
really
a cool picture
man.
of that moment. That was fun for me. Got to jam a little bit. I remember we were on tour with Brad Paisley, the second tour we did with him. And he had one of his amp builders out with him. His name's Tony Bruno. And he was doing some wiring and all this stuff, and capacitors and all this stuff I don't know anything about. And so, he was out with Brad for a week, and Brad's jamming every day for hours, and you can hear him everywhere because it's so loud. And Brad comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, can you come into the room and just like play my guitar through the amp while I sit there and listen?" And I remember thinking,
twist my arm.
Jesus, did you really ask me to do that?
Yeah.
So he's like, "Yeah, can you come in like at 3:00 or something, like before you guys sound check?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah." So I go back to the bus and I get my guitar and I start practicing.
Yeah, I bet.
Like, how can I improve like a lot over the next hour before I go in and play in front of Brad?
That's really cool.
And it was funny. So I went in there and did it. I played his guitars quite a bit. And over during that tour, his tech used to let me just go in and play his guitars. And that was a lot of fun.
That is cool, man.
So I've had really cool moments like that, with different musicians. That I got to meet Roy Clark.
Oh, wow.
And because Roy was out to do a performance with Brad. And, that was a big moment for me, because when I got my guitar for Christmas back when I was a kid, my mom also got me a Roy Clark guitar instruction method.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
They had these little stickers you put all over the guitar neck, and it was really cool. So when I got to meet him, he was kind of frail, and I just shook his hand. I said, "You mean a lot to me," because you're amazing, of course. But my mom bought that Roy Clark instructional method book, and I used it for a long time. And he hugged me and he shook my hand. He said, "Well, thank you for getting the book." And then I took a picture with him, and
that's cool, man.
It was really cool, man.
That is really neat.
So there's
tons of good experiences.
20 other experiences, but I can't think of them right offhand. But
no,
it's been so cool.
Your bio said that you do national and regional radio spots. I was wondering if you could be more specific about that, and also how you got started doing that work.
Well, okay. So the way that I got started doing that is, like every other musician in Nashville, and this was like years ago. So this was before Darius. So I'm thinking, because I worked for this company for about 4 years. So I would say about 15 years ago, probably longer. I was into I had my own little home studio and just recording my own stuff, and did some indie projects with some artists. And, I had just invested in the Pro Tools rig. I went from ADATs. I don't know if you remember ADATs. It's like using a VHS tape.
The tapes, yeah.
Yeah, so I went from that over to Pro Tools, and I knew just enough to be able to scrape by. And this lady that I had gone to church with, she was working for this media company in Nashville, and she said, "Do you know anything about like Pro Tools?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know a little bit." She said, "The company I work for, they do radio spots for different artists and for authors and stuff, and they needed somebody to come in because they were just overloaded and couldn't keep up with their schedule." I said, "Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, I think I can do it. And so I went in and I guess I did kind of audition because I had to take a project and build it. And they gave me the source material. And then I built a commercial. And it wasn't very good because I wasn't familiar with how to mix things for AM and FM radio.
Okay.
Because they cover both. So I had to learn how to do that. But I was able to go in and fake it enough to get the gig. And it became a side gig for a while when I was out with other artists because I was touring mostly on the weekends.
Okay.
So I just did the side gig, just making a little money per radio spot. And then they decided to hire me and put me on a salary working for them. I'm like, okay, well, this helps me.
Cool. Yeah.
So I did that. So it was just like a regular 8 to 5 job, Monday through Friday. Worked a lot of overtime because we worked with a lot of radio stations around the country. We did specific spots for them. So I did that for 4 years, and I learned a ton about Pro Tools and how to mix things and how to do what's called Foley. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Foley, but it's like they do it in movies where, if they need to create footsteps, they, take two shoes and they smack them together and they do the panning and all that to where it sounds like somebody's walking past your right ear.
Oh, very cool.
Or, they do car door slams and, rolling down the electronic window in the car, or, whatever. So I learned how to do that because we had to do things like that for commercials.
Did you have to write was there were you just doing the mixing, or was there like songs that you had to put together?
I only wrote one little piece. We had a vast library of songs, and I still hear them when I listen to radio spots. Even so
funny.
They still use some of those. It's
great.
It's hilarious. It's from some company that we spent thousands of dollars getting the songs from. But it was really cool because I learned a ton about Pro Tools and how to record things, just random sound. It's sound effects. That's what Foley. So it was pretty cool. And, it allowed me to have a consistent income coming in, which is always very helpful with any musician because musicians are not necessarily used to consistency.
Sure.
And so I had that consistency, and I was able to breathe a little bit and be educated in a whole new realm of recording and learn a little bit of the radio world. And then I also still toured on the weekends. And so I felt like I had done pretty well for myself. So I did that for about 4 years, and then I had to leave when I got the Darius gig. But it was a good balance of, doing some engineering and producing commercials, and then also get my fix of playing music on the weekends.
Yeah.
Plus, I have 4 kids, so they were still very young at the time, and I was raising them, and it allowed me to be home.
Wow, I didn't realize you had 4 kids. I thought you had 2. Wow, you are an insane person.
2 times 2.
Yeah, holy smokes. Wow.
So I was a dad during the week, and I was able to come home every night and, be very involved in the raising of my children.
That's great, man.
So it was a blessing, and I think we everything happened for a reason, and all those missed auditions or whatever you want to call them, they didn't work out for a specific reason.
Right. Right.
And so
that's great, man.
Yeah.
You're from, you said Evanston, Illinois?
I'm from Evansville, Indiana.
Evansville, Indiana. Sorry about that.
Which is not far from Evanston, Illinois, I don't think.
Man, this is the curse of being from New York City. It's like you don't know anything other than like New York City. Right? And Florida, where I live now, and there's a little, we heard of Texas and California. What was growing up in Evansville? What is Evansville like? Is it a small town, or is it
It's a small town. I don't really know what the population is now. I think it's probably a couple 100,000 maybe.
Oh, it is small.
Maybe a little bit more. Hopefully nobody from Evansville will hate me for saying that. I moved away. My plan when I was in high school was when I turned 18, I was going to move to LA. I mean, because it was 1986 when I graduated high school. And so, the LA rock scene was very very on
Yeah.
at that time. And that was my goal. And then I ended up going to college in Northern Indiana, a small school. And, while I was there, my sophomore year, I applied for Musicians Institute, and I took a little prerequisite test to get approved to come out and go to GIT there in North Hollywood. And so I was all excited to do it, but never found a place to live. It was and I didn't really know how to find a place to live. And I looked in some magazines and stuff, but it never worked out. So I just stayed in Indiana, finished, and got my degree.
In what?
Well, I have 2 degrees, actually. One is in world history.
Okay.
And the other one is in classical guitar.
Wow. What a polar opposite. That's wild.
Well,
where did the history?
I went for, I wanted to get my degree in music, and then I declared classical guitar as my major, because that's kind of how I started, was playing with my guitar lessons when I was 14, was playing classical. And I fell in love with it because, Randy Rhoads was a classical guitar player. I knew that, Eddie played a little bit of classical. So it was kind of like, the Satrianis and the Vais and all them. It was like their foundation. They had a foundation in reading music and learning theory. So that was exciting for me to really make it a declared major. And so then, I was a big fan of one of the history professors, and I took, my required history classes. Then I took all the electives, and my I went 4.5 years. So at the end of my official 4th year, senior year, my advisor said, you're only 2 classes away from declaring a history major, and that's going to look really good on a resume.
Okay.
I was like, okay. I mean, I would never be a teacher. I would have to, when you graduate college, sometimes you do a big brain dump, and it's like, okay, well, now I just forgot half of what I learned.
Sure.
So it would be hard for me to teach history, but so I just took those classes, and I had that double major.
It sounds like it was more something like of an enjoyment that you did, and you might as well, what the hell, 2 more classes, taking something that you enjoy. What the hell, get a degree, of course.
And I really enjoyed the history classes, and this professor, he had a profound influence on me.
That's very cool.
In creating my worldview and on politics and all that. So
that's cool. It's always like you're either a history, English, or like math, science. Yeah, I was always on the math, science, and I would sit in the history classes like, please get me out of here, man. Whereas guys would sit in like I was taking like advanced calculus, and people were like, what the hell is wrong with you? So it's always,
and that's when my brain explodes. When you say calculus, I'm like,
right.
What is going on?
I totally get it, because I'm the same way with the history and this kind of stuff, man. Did you come from a big family, like brothers and sisters?
No, I am adopted.
Wow.
And I was adopted by a single mother in Evansville. I was.
Wow, man, that is.
Yeah, kind of a crazy story. It was just me and my mom.
That is wild, man. Your mom, she must be a real strong woman.
She was a great woman. She passed away 10 years ago.
Sorry, man.
And her and I were very tight.
Yeah.
And I grew up next to my grandparents, and I had them always in my life. But yeah, it wasn't common back when I was a kid in school for you to be growing up with a single mother.
Yeah.
It wasn't very common. And
it wasn't common in Evansville, Indiana.
Right. In Evansville, Indiana. Exactly.
Right. In the Bronx where I grew up, it was real common.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So in Evansville, middle America, farmland and stuff, it was uncommon, and it was a little embarrassing. And I was in Cub Scouts, and everybody had their dad there, and I didn't. And, I was kind of bummed and felt sorry for myself and blah, blah, blah. But my mom did the best she could. She worked a factory job for Whirlpool, and my grandparents helped raise me as well. And so, yeah, it was just me, and I had cousins, and I had a very large neighborhood of kids. So there was a lot of friends.
That's wild, man. It's interesting. I interviewed a musician yesterday, and he was adopted, and there were 6 kids in the family. 5 of them were adopted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this is like back to back. It's really like, that's wild.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. It was like the last interview I had. It's like, holy crap. That is really wild, man. Well, I have nothing but respect for you and your mom, because that is a tough thing to have to deal with as not being adopted, but to have to deal with the that there's almost something wrong with it. That had to be really difficult. And I give you all the respect in the world for that, man.
Thank you. I sometimes it was a little embarrassing, but most of the time I was pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
The whole reason that I was adopted is my mom had cancer when she was a teenager,
right?
And she was not able to have children. So It was her greatest wish. And so when the opportunity came for me to be in her life, she jumped on it. She cleaned herself up. She had spent a long time in Miami partying, and but she always wanted a child. And when the opportunity came up, she cleaned her life up. And so I was her world, and it's pretty amazing. She did everything she could. I didn't grow up in a super great neighborhood. And, she worked all the time, and just typical factory job. And, I never did without. And
man, it's very moving, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, thank you. My wife is also adopted. And what's interesting is that she's from Cleveland, or the Akron, Canton area, and she was adopted by her parents, and they went to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and where she was adopted from, and where I went to college is just an hour south of Fort Wayne in Marion, Indiana. So it's very interesting.
And you're both from Indiana, both adopted, and you met, I think you said, in Nashville.
We met in Charlotte, North Carolina.
In Charlotte, yeah. After the event that she was doing or something like that? Yeah.
Right. She had coordinated an event and brought Darius in. It was for veterans and wounded veterans.
Holy shit. This is like wacky really, shit working in the universe.
It's really cool when you think about it.
Absolutely cool.
So, yeah, she was adopted out of Fort Wayne from parents from the Akron, Canton area. And she was adopted because their son had passed away. He was young and he passed away. So they adopted her. And yeah, it's very, very crazy.
Wow, man, it's very moving, man. Very emotional. Really. Wow. Thank you for sharing all that, man. It's
yeah, of course.
Got goosebumps when you're talking about that, man, to be honest with you. Now I got to talk about music. I need a better segue, man.
Talk about music. Enough about, like I said earlier, enough about me. Now
enough about me. Let's talk about you, man. How did you get into playing guitar in the first place?
I always like to share this story because my grandmother. My grandpa played a little bit of guitar, and he kind of picked around. He always liked to play Hank Williams. On his guitar, and he only knew a couple little chords, and he would play the same thing over and over again. I thought it was so cool, and I still have his acoustic.
Oh, that is awesome.
The 1954 Gibson acoustic, and it's actually in Nashville right now, and I need to get it worked on. But man, that guitar has some incredible memories. Anyway, so I started getting interested in music, and I remember being at the store with my mom and my grandma, and I was over in the vinyl section. That's all there was in the music area. And I saw this Kiss Alive 2 album. And I'm looking at it, and I'm just fascinated by the pictures on the back of it. And I have that album mounted on my wall in my house here, because that album is what set the course. It started that fire of wanting to be a musician. And so I remember taking it up to my grandma. I'm like, can you buy this for me? And she's looking at it, and I can tell she's like, what on earth? And she's looking at Gene Simmons with blood on his mouth and all that stuff. And so she buys it for me, and I take it home, and I'm playing it on my crappy little record player, and I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I listen to it over and over again. And I open it, it's a double album, and I open it up, and you see the stage with the fire and all that. And I'm just looking at it and staring at it and fantasizing. And I'm like, this is what I want to do.
Really? It was that deep of a...
Yeah. Third grade, man. Third grade. I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is exactly what I want to do. I want to play guitar and be on stage. And from that moment, that's everything I did was, what can I do to eventually end up right here? Yeah. And so that was kind of the beginning. And then, I asked for a guitar. I didn't get a guitar for Christmas until years later. I would always make guitars out of cardboard, and I would stand in front of the mirror and I would play, but I never got a guitar. And then one year for Christmas, I asked for one. And so my mom ordered a Les Paul copy guitar out of the Sears catalog. Yeah. And I got that in some sort of crappy little Sears amp. Yeah. And I own both of those still.
Do you really? So you're like good with nostalgia, like hanging on.
Oh, totally.
That's good, man.
The only thing I don't have is I wish I still had my Ibanez 700 series that I bought. It was purple and it was awesome, but I sold that. So yeah, that guitar and amp are still in Nashville. And so, I just started taking guitar lessons, and I wanted to go in, and I just wanted to. I tell my students sometimes, I tell them the story, because when I'm teaching them in the early phases, they're having difficulty learning certain things. And I said, look, I remember how difficult it was. I said, learning guitar for me at the beginning was difficult, and I did certain things that were kind of silly. I said, I took the top string off of the guitar because it was in my way. So I took the high E off. I was like, this string doesn't work.
I don't need this high E. Yeah.
Making too much noise, man. So
that's great.
I said, you don't want to do that. But I said, I understand how difficult making some chords are in the early days. So, I got into guitar lessons. My mom got me in with this guy that taught classical guitar, and I didn't want to learn classical at first.
Of course not.
No, and that's when he told me. He said, Randy Rhoads plays classical guitar, and that's his foundation. I'm like, well, okay, all right, then we'll give it a try. And I never practiced. I always waited until 30 minutes before my guitar lesson. I'd come home from school. I'd hurry up and learn whatever. Then I'd go in. He knew it every week. Yeah. And that's why I can pick it out with my students.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can totally tell you're playing the right notes, but I can tell you just learned this. Anyway, so he would do a little bit of a mix of, if I wanted to learn. I remember there was a Van Halen, I think it was a Spanish Fly, So he taught me how to play that, or he played it, and then I attempted to play it.
That was pretty cool that he was, because most classical teachers are not open to doing that, of guys I've spoken to. So he was a pretty cool teacher that he was willing to do that.
He was. And, I remember him asking me, he said, have you ever heard the song, I Can't Quit You, Baby? And I hadn't really listened to any Zeppelin yet. And I told him, I said, well, I have it in my Guitar for the Practicing Musician magazine. Right. He's like, bring it in. He said, let's learn it. So.
Wow. Really cool teacher.
Yeah. So we did a mix of the classical stuff. And then once in a while, I went out and bought the music for I Love Rock and Roll.
From Joe and Jet.
Yeah. But it was, I didn't realize it. It was piano music. And so he already knew the song. So he just showed me how to play it. So moving forward, I like to do that with my students. I like to encourage them to learn a little bit of the foundation of classical guitar, learn a little bit of musical notation, apply some of the theory. And so you kind of maybe know a little bit of what you're doing. And then, instead of just always showing them around the campfire songs, they can learn. And some students like that and some don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I want them happy, but I always encourage them to give it a shot, 6 weeks.
Dude, you live, so you're literally living your dream. Not many people get to do that.
I am, sometimes, it's easy to forget, but well,
of course, because life, then you have life to deal with. So of course it's easy to forget. Life is tough.
So when I look back, my wife and I reminisce about this at times, and it's like, the path was not, it took a long time. It wasn't as fast as some people, but this is just my path. And, everything, just landed the way it was supposed to.
Yeah.
And it made me who I am as a musician and as a person. And I'm very content where I'm at, and it's fun. And I don't know. I never feel like. Obviously, I have not reached the pinnacle as a player, and I still want to learn, and I still try to learn stuff, and always interested in sitting down with somebody and have them show me their approach to teaching and learning from them. So it is definitely a dream that I feel like I'm living, and it's exciting and it's fun,
Man, what were some of the lower points or the bigger obstacles that have been in the way that you had to deal with, and how did you manage to get through them? Either personal, business, music, whatever you'd like.
I think first thing that comes to mind is, for me, I had to have, this was back in 1999, I think that was the year. I was having some issues with my left hand, and so I ended up having a couple surgeries on this left hand, and it was pretty extensive. And the only way I can explain it is that I was having a lot of pain. You can see, I know the listeners can't see, but right through here, a lot of pain when I was playing. And, when I was younger, I used to always just practice speed and as fast as I could play. And the doctor just told me, he said, look, you've been playing long enough now that you've just you've developed some tendonitis issues and stuff like that. And he said, but also, there's something going on with this tendon here or something. He said, I'm going to try to work on it and fix it for you. So he did a couple surgeries, and it did eliminate the burning, because it was burning the top of my hand. He said it's from a tendon. He said there was a tendon you can see on this hand. There's a tendon that's moving back and forth when I do this. And he said it's scraping the top of your hand and it's causing a burning effect. And so I wouldn't want to practice because it would burn. So it was weird. So anyway, he went in, and whatever he did, he did fix it, but I have a ton of scar tissue. And when they took the cast off of the second surgery, I had no mobility in the middle finger.
Holy crap.
Okay, which causes a problem when you're trying to drive in Nashville and you can't use your middle finger.
Yeah. Well deserved in Nashville, man.
Right.
I've been there.
So anyway, so what I did, I didn't do physical therapy. He told me, he said, the best thing you could do is start practicing, because I wasn't able to move my wrist at all. I was stuck completely. And he said, you have to start using your hand now. Otherwise, you are going to get stuck.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I went kind of back to the beginning with my classical guitar, and I focused on fixing the bad habits that I used to have as a player.
Okay.
So I worked on some technique and things, and it was very slow. And I was able to fix some really terrible habits that I created when I was a kid. And so that was kind of the first obstacle, and it changed the way that I play. I had to learn how to play different because I lost some of my speed. Okay. But I feel like it made me a better player because I had to not worry so much about the mechanical side of things, but learn to play with more soul, more feeling. And it may not be as many notes, but I think I became a better player because of it.
Well, you said earlier
that was a big obstacle there for me at first.
Oh, hell yeah. And it lines up with what you said earlier. I was playing the parts. I wasn't feeling the parts.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
What about tuition? Everybody pays tuition in their careers. And if you could maybe share one or two musical mistakes you made along the journey, and like maybe what were the lessons you learned from making those mistakes?
I'm going to have to say my ego early on as a guitar player, because I was in small town Indiana and I always felt like I was the best guitar player in town and that nobody had anything, any good information to share with me. I felt like I kind of knew it all, and I was not willing to ask for help as a guitar player. And this was more towards the end of my college career. I had improved incredibly over several years, and I just wasn't willing to ask for help, like to learn more from other people. And I think that I would be a way better guitar player today had I been willing to learn more from other people. Now, I had my instructor in college, but he was different.
Sure.
But, if I would have just been willing to learn and ask more questions, I think I would be a better guitar player today. But I just wanted to learn it all myself. And that's another thing that I use with my students. I'm like, there's no dumb question. I said, if you're not getting something, just let me know. And nowadays, I'm 50, and now I feel like I approach everything in a very humble way because I know that I don't know it all, and I'm not afraid to ask questions. And if somebody thinks I'm dumb, well, so be it. Who cares? Yeah, right. But, there's things that I didn't learn early on in my music career in Nashville that I wish I would have been humble enough to ask. But now, as a 50-year-old, I've gone back and I've asked questions, and I know a lot of songwriters and I know a lot of people in the industry in Nashville, and I've gone back and talked to them. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I thought I knew it all. And I said, I just would like to pick your brain, and it's been incredibly helpful. And people are always willing to help somebody if you approach it humbly.
Yeah, for sure.
And that ties into, you and I have talked about this offline a little bit, into my world of sobriety now, because I was busy not being sober and wasn't willing to be humble and ask questions. And so that's a big deal too. Sobriety has changed my focus and my mentality towards everything.
So a couple of things. First of all, congratulations for getting, dude, I like you because you're a fucking underdog, man. No, I love the underdog, man. That's the people I'm attracted to, the guys that have been beat up and come through, because those are the people I could learn from and, just, I don't know, relate to sort of. So congratulations on getting sober.
Thank you.
The thing with help, I have struggled with that. I don't anymore. were you like that with everything, like reluctant or hard to ask for help, or was it just related to guitar because you felt, you were the shit with it?
I think it was everything.
Really?
It might be that that underdog mentality that you're talking about. It might be because I was an only child, and I was quite often, I was smaller than most kids my age, so I was the last kid to be picked for playing basketball or football. At recess, and I kind of felt like it was me against the world at times when I was younger, and sometimes got picked on for being for not having a dad, and kids are brutal.
Sure.
And so I think it probably did make me not want to ask for help because it was a sign of weakness.
Right.
I thought that it was a sign of weakness.
Interesting.
So and it's not. I don't think it's a sign of weakness. Of course
it's not a sign of weakness. You can't do everything yourself. It's like breathing, man. You got to breathe. You got to ask for help.
Totally.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. With me, I had a really bad childhood, and I was pretty much like the people that were supposed to help me. My parents never helped me. So I was like independent at like fucking 9, doing the wash, shopping. And, so it just never dawned on me to ask for help. Like, I didn't like that. Almost like the word help was just not in my lexicon.
Yeah.
It was literally, it was like I came from another planet, and like that, where my planet, that thing called help, I didn't know it. So I really, and that's one of my biggest regrets in my life, that I didn't, not a regret, because I'm here and I'm really happy with my life. But as far as like, if I could have done things differently, the one thing out of probably 2 things I would have been is ask for help, for sure, because you can't do it alone. You can't do anything alone.
Right.
But I wasn't like too proud or a tough guy. I just didn't think like that's something, it was foreign, which is weird.
Yep.
Which I always told my kids to ask for help for stuff, for me or for anybody else, because I always wanted to make sure they didn't. And they're my older one's 28, my middle is 26, and they've both been real good about that. So, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah, that's great. I've done the same thing, and my kids don't like to ask for help.
Oh, really? Yeah.
but I can read them like a book.
Yeah,
I know, you know how it is.
Yeah. Well, you step in, and then they'll learn it, man. Yeah,
my son does not like any help in anything. He's 14 and a half, and he's a musician. And he's going to be he's already insanely talented, but he's going to be far beyond me. Just, I can tell. I mean, everything is just, right now he's obsessed with Queen, and he knows everything about the timeline of Queen. It's like, wow. He knows like all 27 #1 Beatles songs. And it's like, what? And the year that they were, he's a trivia whiz, and he's a Paul McCartney, huge fan of Paul. So
that's good, man.
Yeah,
man. Thank you for sharing all that, Quinton.
Yeah, of course.
So to close this all out, if you had to go back and give advice to your younger self, what advice would you have given that would have helped you, that you wish you would have had?
I think that I would give my younger self, I would say, be humble and be willing to ask questions. And I would say, you don't know it all. You think you do, but you really don't. And I would also say, don't, how would I say this? Because like we talked about earlier, I found myself lost in the world of addiction, and I would talk to my younger self and say, be careful with recreational activity, for lack of, just be careful with it, because it is a part of the music world. And, I unfortunately was not able to find a way to moderate it. And it ended up stealing a lot of time from me. And, I now have been, sober for a year and a half. And, I feel like I'm making up for lost time. So I guess I would just say, to my younger self, be careful, be humble, and be always willing to learn, and be compassionate towards others. And, because it helps you as a human being, your compassion towards others. It's a huge part of my recovery.
It really is.
It's my step 12 of helping others. And man, that's a big deal, staying sober. When you help others, it helps you stay sober. And, even if you're not dealing with any sort of addiction, just being compassionate and loving and helping those less fortunate is a big deal. I mean, it's a healing thing.
Yeah. And the other thing about that is, for me, what I've found is I didn't have any addiction issues. I just had this really fucked up childhood, but, and I think that I had to make a lot of changes in my programming, similar to how somebody recovering from something does.
Yeah.
But when you're compassionate, you also open up vulnerably. You make yourself more vulnerable. And that, for me, has been the big, you got to, I had to take a deep breath when I started, I got to be nice. That exposes me, but, right. You had to take a deep breath, but it works. There's really no downside about being nice and compassionate, and it's a weird thing when you haven't had that training. Some people grow up, they're just super nice people, warm and wonderful. But if you haven't had that, it's it's easy to mistake kindness for weakness.
Yeah, totally. My wife is a super kind person. Yeah. She's lived her whole life being very compassionate and kind to others. And I've learned, we've been married almost 2 years now, and I've learned an incredible amount of compassion from her, and seeing how she acts towards others. And I've learned to be more thankful for what I have. And, I don't even know if she realizes, and I tell her, how amazing she is and how she's helped me, but I'm not sure she realizes the impact.
Yeah.
She might once she listens to this, but
she probably does, man.
Yeah. And so, I think it's amazing how she has changed my focus on so many things. And again, she's been very compassionate towards my road to recovery. And she didn't know me when I was in the dark depths, but she saw me at the end of it, and she walked with me through some tough times, and she went through the shit, man.
Yeah.
And she was very compassionate and loving, and so I've learned a lot from her.
Well, man, I hope you guys have a ton of years together, man.
Oh, me too.
My wife's been the same to me. She's changed my life. So
yeah, that's great.
Man, let's switch over to music. Talk about some gear. You mentioned some of your guitars. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other two guitars would round out your top three?
My go-to guitar right now, what I've been using on the road, is I have a PRS Tremonti Core model that they sent me before the tour, and it is a machine.
What does that look like? You have that handy?
I do. It's right here.
Cool. Let me see it. I'll describe it. Wow, it looks like a Les Paul kind of with a whammy with a whammy paw.
This is Mark Tremonti's Core model, and
very cool looking. It's gray.
They call it platinum.
Yeah, right.
It is
better description for sure.
It stays in tune like a dream, and you're not doing dive bombs on it, but it is a super heavy guitar. I've got that.
Is that a Wilkinson or is that a PRS?
It's a PRS
whammy bar. Okay.
And then I've got this model here.
Oh, that is cool.
This is the Zach Myers. Zach plays for Shinedown.
Yeah.
And this is his model.
It looks like a hollow body Les Paul kind of.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Sounds freaking awesome. And then this is what I played for a long time. I still play it. It's 2000, early 2000s Les Paul.
Les Paul classic black. Yeah, very cool looking.
Then this guitar here, I got to show this one to you because this is my it's a Fender Custom Shop Telly. It's relict to look like a 58.
Sparkly red with a white pickguard. Yeah. Oh man, look at those. They did a great job on those.
Yeah, look at the belt buckle.
Look at that.
So I bought this right after I got the Darius gig.
That was your present to yourself.
This was my present.
Your country
myself.
Guitar.
Yeah, and I just walked into the Guitar Center a couple days after I got the gig, and I was like, I said, I need the best telly you got. So I spent like $3,600 on this.
Good for you, man.
And
beautiful.
And from that point on, every time I walked in, man, they saw dollar signs.
That's cool, man. Those are beautiful guitars, man. Really.
Oh
cool.
Yeah, dude. It's an incredible telly. It plays like a dream.
Are you a PRS artist?
I am a PRS artist.
Very cool, man.
They just sent me an email a couple hours ago. They're sending me an acoustic. I'm pretty excited to play. I saw them. I went to a PRS party in Nashville a few weeks back, and they had one of their new acoustics out. So they're sending me one. Should be here tomorrow, and I'll be using that for some of our radio performances that we'll do next year and stuff like that.
Very cool, man. Those are beautiful guitars. Hey, who is some of your, like, I don't like to ask who your influences because they're often many the same, but is there anybody that influences your playing that people might be surprised to hear?
I would say probably people might be surprised to hear that because I don't really play like Joe Satriani. They might be surprised to know that he was a big influence of mine, and I was kind of obsessed. I was Satriani and Jimi Hendrix. Those were two phases that I went through and was just absolutely obsessed with everything that they did. And Stevie Ray Vaughan as well. Hendrix, Vaughan, and Satriani. And I don't really play like any of them.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure you would ever hear the influence, but I just thought of this. I don't know why I didn't think of this first. I would say one of the biggest influences, besides Eddie Van Halen, of course, on my playing is Adrian Smith. Do you know Adrian?
From Iron Maiden.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here's one of the most influential things about his playing is the way that he uses the tremolo system in his playing. The vibrato that he uses in his playing, I totally have always tried to match what he does. It's a very slow, it's not one of those super, fast tremolo type vibratos. I mean, I keep saying tremolo, but vibrato.
Yeah.
And I can't stand that kind of playing, but his is very smooth and slinky is the best word. It's just real. It's amazing. I'm not even sure. I mean, I could try to play it for you real quick, but
it's funny. I'm one of those guys. I liked Iron Maiden, their first two albums better. Like when Paul Di'Anno was the singer. I'm like, I love those two albums. Rock, man. They were really. I love those, man. But they were less classical, and I could see most. You would like the classical stuff. They were more bluesy and less.
Yeah, I love every Maiden album out there. They all have a different. Now, of course, Peace of Mind and Number of the Beast and Power Slave. Those are like those three I hold very dear to my heart.
Yeah.
But I love all of the Maiden stuff. I was not a fan of the stuff when Bruce Dickinson was not in the band.
Right.
But everything else I absolutely love. And I would start an Iron Maiden tribute band if I could. If I could find the right singer, I would.
Dude, somebody in Nashville listening to this, contact Quinton, because I got to believe somebody else in Nashville feels the same way, man.
Either that or Judas Priest, because I could play a good Glenn Tipton.
Oh, yeah. That's very cool.
Once my hair grows out a little bit more, I'm going to look just like him. So.
There you go. It's funny, man. I think I'm getting the new Richie, the guy who's touring with him now, Richie, I can't think of his last name. He's coming on my show. I feel embarrassed. I can't think of his name, but I just connected with.
Oh, is it Andy Sneap?
No, he's the other guy. I'll get him because I want to get him, but it's Richie, begins with a K. Hang on a second.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
I'm having a brain fart, but yeah, he's
Faulkner.
Yes. Yep. Richie Faulkner. Yeah. That's exactly right. Thank you.
Oh yeah, dude. He is he's awesome, and he fills that role perfectly. And when I first saw many years ago when he was first in the band, I saw there was a live thing that I watched on TV, and before I actually saw his face, I thought it was Zakk Wylde that was filling in, because he's got that same kind of stance when he plays. You know, his legs stretched out, Les Paul, just big, huge,
big dude. Yeah.
Because
Zack's a big guy.
Zakk is a big guy. Yeah.
Very cool, man. Hey, what's the first record or CD? But your could be record. What's the first? Was it that Kiss Live record?
That was my very first true like rock. Now I still have my mom's record collection that she had.
Oh, that's cool.
When she going through the '60s and all that. So I listened to. I used to listen to early Elvis and Beach Boys. Those were two groups. I mean, Elvis and the Beach Boys, those were two albums that I just listened to over and over. And Ray Charles and the soundtrack to the movie Goldfinger.
Oh, what a great, I love old James Bond soundtracks, man. It's just amazing.
And I always thought that guitar was so cool. Down, 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 down. I didn't realize, it was Jerry Jones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
The guy who played that, is that his name? Jerry Jones? No. He's an English session player. He's like close to 80 now. I reached out to him a while back to have him on the show. I didn't hear back, but I wanted to get him on the show because talk about iconic openings, that's up there, man.
And yeah, that's another album that I would listen to over and over and over again, like every single song. But that first one, that theme song.
Yeah, it's great.
Dang.
Great.
Yeah. And I still have that album. It's in Nashville as well. So
Desert Island Discs, man. Top 3.
Desert Island Disc.
Yeah. Desert Island Disc. Just knee jerk reaction, man. Cause it's impossible to just go with this like permanently, just for today. Right now.
So top 3 albums that I would have on a desert island?
Yes, sir.
Goodness. I'm going to say to get my rock fix, I've got to have Van Halen's Fair Warning.
That's a common choice.
Yeah, that is, hands down Van Halen's Fair Warning for me. Another one would probably, let's see, it's going to have to be probably Peace of Mind from Iron Maiden, and probably the other one that I'm thinking of is Hendrix.
Electric Ladyland. Which one?
I'd probably take the best of.
Yeah, there you go, man. You can take a box set for this show, man.
I'm going to take the box.
We'll throw you a bone, man.
But see, now I'm forgetting Led Zeppelin, which is another. I've forgotten Led Zeppelin. So where do I begin with that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to just go knee jerk reaction, man, because that's like an impossible thing to do, man. I'm
going to replace Peace of Mind with Houses of the Holy.
Okay, you may.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Or Led Zeppelin too. I don't know.
Go with Physical Graffiti, man.
Or
Led Zeppelin 1.
Right.
Hey, Quinton, what's the most important things you've learned about yourself throughout your career experience and through life in general?
Most important thing about myself?
Things you've learned about yourself. Most important things you've learned about yourself.
Things I've learned about myself. Well, I've one thing that I've learned is that my mom instilled a pretty strong work ethic with me at a young age, and that is one thing that when I was in Nashville in the earlier days, and all of my friends that I had made, I saw them starting dropping off like flies. They were just kind of giving up the dream and blah, blah, blah. I was stubborn, and I was not willing to give up what my dream was. And so I've learned that, I am pretty stubborn, but I also live a life of no regrets. And I knew that at some point in my life, if I gave up, I would be 50 years old like I am now. And I'm going to look back and I'll be like, damn,
I shouldn't have.
I should have just kept pushing forward. Yeah. It wasn't easy. I worked every temp job in Nashville I can think of, and I quit half of them, but I still kept the dream alive of playing on the weekends, working jobs, raising 4 kids. So I was doing everything I could. And, if I had to get up an extra hour early in the morning to try to practice a little bit, I did.
Yeah.
Just because it was that stubbornness that was like, I can't give up. I'm going to hate myself forever if I do.
I think when you have, is my observation, when you have baseline stress as a young person, that's a blessing and a curse. The curse of it is you're way too young to have coping skills to deal with it. The blessing is if you do get through it, you then have that resiliency for other stuff, which your peers at that time probably don't have the coping skills for that you do.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing.
That's some great insight. I've never thought about that, but I think you're right.
Well, that's the way it seems. It seems like, you're like iron getting forged at a young age. The bad thing is, man, you shouldn't have to go through getting forged at iron at a young age. But, the flip side is now you're fucking an indestructible machine,
Yeah.
And you can crush it.
A lot of sense. Even though my mom did such a fantastic job and she took care of me and I never did without, I knew that we weren't like, well off. And so I did live an early life of being stressed about money and wondering, and we would have never been homeless or anything, but, wondering if that could potentially happen. And it always made me nervous about money.
Yeah.
I think that was a big stressor, and that carried on over into my adult life. That's why I'm a saving machine,
which is great.
And it's crazy. I don't like to spend money.
Great.
And stuff. Yeah. but so, I see how that carries over into adulthood, those stressors from being a kid.
Yeah, but better to have a problem where you're quote too tight than where you don't save anything. Of the two ills, if you want to call them that, I think the better one to have is, you're too tight.
Yeah.
You'll suffer less.
Totally.
You a rule breaker or a rule follower?
Both. I think I have a mix of both.
Yeah.
Because I do like to follow the rules, and a good example is when I auditioned for Darius, I was told what to play, and when I went in for the audition, I played what they asked me to.
Yeah.
And I think that was a part of the deciding factor of why I got hired. Because I didn't come in with, oh, here's my interpretation of what you want. I came in and I played exactly what they asked.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that was a big deal. But at the same time, I do like to follow rules, but, I do like to go a little bit beyond sometimes and maybe break some rules. So.
Sure. Yeah, I figured I got that sense from you. I thought you were going to answer that actually. But
I have respect for rules. Yeah. I have a lot of respect for rules.
Who's had the biggest influence on your life musically and then personally? I'm assuming personally, you'd probably say your wife.
I would say personally.
Well, now you got to. I shouldn't have said anything.
Are you still home? Yes. My wife is my biggest influence. In all honesty, I would say, yeah, she has been a profound influence on me. And you know, I've known her 2.5 years, and we got married 11 months after we met, and she has been a huge influence in many different areas, and she has shown me what true love is, what compassion is, what having a good heart is all about. And so, you know, I would say her on a personal level. And then you asked musically.
Yeah.
I would say I'm going to go with one of the professors in college. His name was Dr. Mayer. He was the one of the piano instructors, but he also taught music theory and other classes. And he was very, very hard on me. But he was also, you know, I had to take piano lessons from him as well. And he was intimidating. But he also was one of the nicest guys ever.
Tough love sort of guy.
Yeah, he had these multiple like personalities. It's like, man, and I know that sounds weird, but and if he heard this, he would probably be like, "What are you talking about?" But no, I would go in and I would be like, you know, nervous before my piano lesson with him. But then once he sat down and he started talking, he's totally cool.
Yeah,
you know. Then if I would make a mistake, he'd be like, well, no, that's not how you do it. You got to do it this way. And keep doing it. Do it over and over and over again. And but he was nice about it. So he had like these different facets to his personality, and I was intimidated of him, man. I just was. He was just a big, towering dude, and I'm just this little metalhead trying to learn classical music.
Man, do you have any hobbies outside of music or interests?
I would say a hobby and an interest in something that I do every day in my life is, you know, I exercise. You know, so is that considered a hobby, Craig?
You know, I don't like, I always list it as like, cause I have to fill out shit, you know, bios or whatever. And then like, I always put that down as an interest. Yeah. I like to exercise, I like working out, you know? So yeah, I think so, because it's something that I mean, as often as you do it and as often as I do it, it's an interest. It's not like something I pick up. It's not like, yeah, you know, once in a blue moon, I'll go to the gym. I'm there 5 days a week. You just said you're working out 6 days a week. So yeah, it's an interest for sure.
Usually, yeah, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, combine that with running. I like to run. That's when I meditate really well. Yeah. I don't do it that much just because of, because I'm getting old. But
it's so cathartic running, man. It really is. It's like,
oh yeah. And I run, you know, I don't run any more than maybe 2, maybe 3 miles. I'm not a long distance guy.
Yeah.
But that 30 minutes of running is very, so there's a lot of mind release that happens, and you just, it's great.
Yeah.
But as far as hobbies, man, I don't know if I have like a hobby. You know, I told my wife that I wanted to get a drone for Christmas. She's like, "Why do you need a drone? What are you going to do with a drone?" I'm like, "I don't know. It'd be fun. Just fly it around."
That is fun.
So I know. I think I kind of like stuff like that, gadgety kind of things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, you know, if I could have a really big giant train set in my house, I probably would.
There you go, man. 2 more questions, Quinton. I really appreciate everything.
Sure.
Anything you do on a regular basis to make sure that you're getting the most out of life and enjoying your time as much as possible?
Yeah, I first off, I try to get a good night's sleep. That is a foundation of my keeping my life running well. I'm not I'm not really great when I'm super tired. So, try to get a good night's sleep. I do a little bit of meditation. That's something that I just started once I came out of recovery, or when I started my recovery process. I'm not great at it, but it is a part of my daily routine, a little bit of meditation. I think those are foundational to my sobriety, and also to just carrying a good non-stressed life. And I like to live non-stressed. I really try not to get too uptight about anything, worry, because, worry doesn't really help you a whole lot.
And it doesn't change the situation.
It doesn't change the situation. And my kids are a good example, because, my youngest daughter, she's 18, and, it was always hard when my kids started driving, but there wasn't anything I could do about it. And I had to kind of let it go, and, you just letting go, and trying not to get too worried about things you can't control. And then, the serenity prayer, I'm sure.
Hell yeah.
I say that serenity prayer 20 times a day.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I can't control certain things, but I do have the ability to control what I can. And so I try to do that. And that is keeping a non-stressed life. And I think I'm at my best as a musician, as a husband, and as a father, and as a friend, and as a sober contact for other people that are struggling. And it starts with making sure I'm good right here, in the heart and in the mind. And
how many hours? What is a good night's sleep for you?
I sleep, and ever since I got sober, I've actually slept really good.
I bet.
Sometimes I don't sleep great on the bus.
Yeah.
But even if I don't sleep great on the bus, I'm still way better than I used to be when I had hangovers, and I was because I had so much anxiety when I was struggling with hangovers. And hangovers were a way of life for me. And I never played as good, and I never practiced, and I was always anxious. So a good night's sleep for me is, 7-8 hours.
Yeah, that's a good night.
And I wake up and I pop up out of bed, and I'm pretty energetic by 8:30, 9 o'clock, which is virtually unheard of for the previous 25 years of my life.
Good for you, man. It's funny you mentioned being anxious. A guy who was in NA that I know, one time he said to me, and this is what I'm sure this is a common thing they say in the rooms, something about you start using as a solution for your problem, and then your solution becomes your new problem.
Totally.
So
it totally does. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Man, and the last question, biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of this change has been deliberate and how much is just a part of aging?
Biggest change, I think one of the big changes in my personality, again, going back to sobriety, is that I have become a less stressed person, more compassionate, more talkative. I don't isolate like I used to. Now, I like to be by myself and, practice or, meditate or whatever. I don't have a problem with that. But there was a time in my life where I isolated from everyone.
Yeah.
And I wasn't just, I wasn't a laid back guy. And I think a lot of, I think the band guys and the people of the crew and everything, I think they would also agree that I've become more laid back on the road, to an extent. And, and of course my wife, she would say that my personality is way different, not as stressed, just let things flow the way they do, I can't control what I can't control. And, so I think, that has been the biggest change over the last 10 years, just a nicer, person, I'm naturally a quiet guy. So, that can be perceived as not being nice sometimes, and, but that's really not me. I'm just like to be quiet. I was
Sure.
an only child. I played by myself.
Yeah.
Quite often, you know, so I doesn't bother me to be alone at all.
Man, I cannot thank you enough. I really enjoyed this conversation, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I don't know you in this way, but I just want to tell you I'm really proud of you.
Thank you,
all
Craig.
the shit you did and what you've gone through, man. And I wish you nothing but continued success. And when you come down here to Tampa, we'll definitely hook up.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure being on, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And, you know, I'm sure that we will connect the next time I'm in Tampa. You know, I wish I would have known you when we played there this summer.
Yeah. Well, I'll be up in Nashville also probably this summer. So one of the two will hook up. But I want to tell people where to find you. And best place to do, Quinton's got a really good website. It's Quinton Gibson. Let me spell his name. It's Quinton, Gibson.com. And everything he's doing is on there. You could also go on his Instagram account. It's at Quinton Gibson. Again, it's Quinton with an O, Quinton. Follow him on Instagram, and you got to ask for permission, but he'll let you in. And if you have any questions, he's also does a lot of teaching. So if you are interested in doing Skype lessons with him, message him on Instagram. It's safe to say if someone's struggling with addiction, they can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am more than happy to talk. You know, I know the struggle. I know that sometimes it's hard to reach out, and sometimes it's hard to ask for help. And, you know, if I wouldn't have asked my wife or told my wife that I needed help, I may not be here in this conversation right now.
Well, good. And so
I would encourage everyone to ask for help, man.
Yes, definitely ask for help. And if you feel comfortable and you want to reach out to Quinton, do so on his Instagram at Quinton Gibson. Again, it's Quinton with an O, Quinton. And also, you're involved in a veterans charity, or your wife is. You want to mention that?
My wife, she is a development director for the Independence Fund, and they help get trek chairs for catastrophically wounded veterans. And she is doing amazing things for the Independence Fund. And, you know, one thing that I've learned is that we, as the average American, we forget what these veterans go through once they get home.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just, it can be, it's not always the case, but it can be unbelievable PTSD, falling into addiction. You know, marriages are just shaken, and I'm learning more each day. And I'm so proud of what my wife, Jen, is doing with the Independence Fund. And they are really making some good progress in helping vets with dealing with suicide. I mean, the suicide rate is unreal.
Off the charts, yeah.
It is tragic. And it's heartbreaking because really, you know, we just don't, I didn't realize what they all go through once they get home.
Yeah.
And the recovery, not, you know, you've got, you know, because I've been, like I told you earlier, I've been injured pretty bad in an accident. So you have, you know, I think about dealing with trying to recover physically and then mentally with PTSD and all the different dynamics of that. It's just unbelievable. So all that to say, the Independence Fund is, you know, they raise money. They're a nonprofit. They raise money to help veterans get these trek chairs, and it allows them to be more mobile. They can go hunting, or they can go fishing, or they can go off-road. It's pretty incredible. And they do way more than just the chairs, but that's one of the things my wife works with. And, you know, they have a great website. It's just theindependencefund.org.
Great. So check those out. And I would encourage anybody, if you haven't spoken to a veteran who's back from combat, sit down and do that. It will fucking blow your mind. The life they lived over there. And then they come back here and they're like, they can't go to Publix and go shopping. It's just so completely abnormal. It's just mind blowing. So yeah, I think that's a good cause. Independencefund.org. Man, thank you for everything. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you, and appreciate you being so cool and talking about, you know, all the cool stuff. And thank you for sharing your story.
Craig, it's been a pleasure being on here, man. And can't wait to hook up with you again, buddy.
Likewise. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with a friend on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Quinton Gibson for spending time with us. Go support Quinton. Check him out online at quintongibson.com. Again, it's Quinton with an O. And friend him on Instagram at Quinton Gibson. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.